Why are they talking about nuclear weapons? That's a question that we can answer. I'm John Batchelor with Gordon Chang. Why are we talking about nuclear weapons, Gordon? Because Henry Sokolsky is our guide to a policy that was put in the back of the library in the 1990s by the Clinton administration. And we weren't going to use them anymore. Don't you remember that fancy talk about how we took out the code for the geography of the targeting, even though you could put it back in within moments, especially as we improve our computers. Now, the reason we talk about nukes at all anymore is North Korea. That's all. Although Henry reminds us, and this is not confirmed, but that the Russians have talked about deploying tactical nuclear weapons to Kaliningrad. We've heard from our friend at the Naval War College, James Holmes, that at one time we had tactical nukes on the fleet, but they're no longer there.
Yeah, but Putin has been talking about using nukes against the Baltics.
Right.
There's a lot of Russian conversation over the last couple of years. This conversation is current, and this is important because at the moment, they have superiority and conventional forces on the borders of the Baltics and Poland. They're going to put 3 more divisions there within a year.
Right.
And that is going to be important for us because, as a RAND study said, we just talked about it, they can overrun those states within 3 days.
That's what Breedlove pointed to on his exit, and it's what the new general in charge of the European forces, American forces, talks about all the time, the ability of the Russians to deploy. It is interior battle lines. That's why they have so many men there to overwhelm. Let's move to nukes in Asia. Henry's worried about Chinese nukes. I'm going to momentarily pause on North Korean nukes. There was a piece by Josh Rogin, our colleague, in the Washington Post last week with satellite imagery of the border between China and North Korea, a border crossing I was unfamiliar with until I saw it. There were pictures from 2015, pictures from 2016, showing a surprising, sharp decrease in traffic of train traffic and tractor-trailer traffic along the border. The reasoning behind this piece was that the Chinese have attempted to discipline North Korea about its proliferation of nuclear weapons and missiles. First of all, do you account for that? The Chinese trying to do this? Are those satellite images accurate? And why aren't the Chinese boasting about this?
Yeah, the Josh Rogin piece talks about work that was done by Victor Cha at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. And clearly there has been a drop in both truck and train traffic across the border. So that's probably true. But there's a lot of stuff that you don't pick up by satellite imagery. And for instance, David Albright, who has watched the nuclear relationship between both China and North Korea, has been saying that the Chinese have been allowing across their border cylinders of uranium hexafluoride, which is the material for a uranium bomb. And they've also been allowing over valves, vacuum pumps, computers. So essentially, China is allowing all of this trade despite what they've been saying about coal and oil and all the rest of it.
All right, let me reason again, following Josh Rogin's piece, that this was evidence that the Chinese had attempted to discipline or in some fashion punish Kim Jong-un or whatever the dictatorship is there, but they were ineffective. And so rather than admit that we have no power, they maintain the fiction that we can exercise complete control over North Korea, we've got them in hand, don't worry about it, and failed to do that, haven't said anything. Now, the additional question here is, if we go along with the idea that the Chinese have tried to discipline, does that mean that doesn't necessarily rule out the possibility that they're enhancing or making money off of the nuclear weapons program there? They just don't like the way it's being used, the provocative way. I mean, Kim Jong-un, to call him immature is inadequate, but in some fashion you'd have to say that he's an unpredictable and detached human being. And the way he's taunted South Korea and the whole area this last year can't please people in Beijing. They can't have a plan out of this. They're more organized than that.
Yeah, well, of course, China doesn't like it. China sort of feels it doesn't control North Korea like to the degree it wants. But nonetheless, I think what's important is we saw North Korea's top diplomat go to Beijing about a month ago. And essentially, I think the Chinese were pleased with that because essentially the North Koreans are acknowledging the superiority of the Chinese in the relationship. And now that the North Koreans have acted like vassals, I think we're going to see the Chinese loosen sanctions. So, all those pictures that Josh Rogan was talking about, that satellite imagery, I think we're going to see more commerce across the North Korean-China border.
There's one more, and we've got 30 seconds, Gordon. There's one more concern I have. If the Chinese are desperate, which they are, all this activity could be happening or not happening on the basis of profiteering or warlords, nothing organized out of Beijing at all, correct?
Yeah.
It's random.
Yes, because a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs are doing business in North Korea beyond the control of both Beijing and Pyongyang. That's been true for a number of years now.
So truck traffic and train traffic wouldn't mean that the traffic had been cut out entirely. We just can't see it.
Beijing can control some of it, not all of it.
Gordon Chang of the Daily Beast. I'm John Batchelor.